At the end of last week, Delta was forced to ground around 100 of its aircraft at Atlanta Hartsfield on a very temporary basis. Atlanta, being a hub, meant that the grounding of a significant portion of its fleet temporarily did have ramifications on its schedule. The groundings occurred following a major weather storm that brought widespread hail and high winds across the region. For aircraft that were not parked in a hangar at the airline's hub, while there was a requirement for checks to be conducted to ensure that planes had not sustained structural damage. This is pretty typical whenever some type of weather-related incident takes shape. However, with engineers working overtime to ensure the jets were in top working order, the airline confirmed that work was concluded by Saturday morning, allowing the planes that were checked to formally re-enter service. The US carrier confirmed, however, that around 14% of its daily schedule on the Friday, which operates in and out of the airport, was cancelled as a result of that weather storm. By the end of Sunday, the airline would go on to express its apologies for the impact, but said its operations had very much stabilised, and customers that were still seeing the effects of the storm and cancellations/delays were being assisted with any potential inquiries that they may have. While Delta would be absolutely pleased that its fleet was able to essentially avoid structural damage from the storm, which would have kept its planes on the ground longer than just a few hours, there was still some operational hurt felt. What the carrier describes as an irregular operational event of a significant scale referred to high winds that forced evacuation, resulting in power outages across the airport alongside rain. As a result, hundreds of flights were cancelled, and while this impacted passengers flying in and out of Atlanta, it did not stop at just this airport. Cancellations driven by weather-related circumstances for any airline, let alone, might I add, a major global player such as Delta, has quite significant knock-on effects, even if the issue occurs only over a very limited period. The knock-on effect was certainly felt across much of its domestic and also international network, with passengers going on to miss their own connections, failing to, say, reach the hub of Atlanta, and you also had aircraft that were stranded, unable to complete their daily planned schedules, and what this meant is crew were also facing something very similar. While this was an isolated storm on Friday, Delta said the effects were still felt across the early part of the weekend as it looked to play catch-up with cancelled and delayed flights, finding ways to mitigate the impact on its customers and crew wherever possible. But no doubt, as I stated, for an airline of this scale, hurt is still felt. Luckily, however, the planes not having any structural damage mean they have been able to return to normal operations as quickly as possible. Weather storms, being very unpredictable, always remain a threat, and with at times little to no advanced warning of their arrival, it makes it hard to really protect your key assets in the aircraft. The logistics of moving these planes in a ever busy aviation industry is challenging, and you can't necessarily fly out all the planes with 30 minutes to an hour notice. Of course, if something bigger was coming and there had been days' warnings, Delta may have taken greater precautions to protect the planes, like we have seen in the past, but in this case, it came all very quickly. Let me know your thoughts. Were you impacted potentially by what took shape? I'd love to hear down below in the comments. Thanks for watching, take care, be safe, and I'll see you tomorrow for your next industry recap.
And we'll fly.